too, over and over.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the ZBA meeting of March 3rd, 2020. As we get started, I'm going to ask that you all make sure your phones are silent, and then if you would also please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Goffstown Zoning Board is an elected board of 5 members and up to 5 appointed alternates. Currently, the board has 5 elected members, or appointed members, and 1 alternate. So if anyone's interested in serving on the ZBA, you can see Nancy Larson for more detail. The board has a posted agenda for each meeting and tends to follow the items in order. The board will open the public hearing on an application and receive testimony from applicants, abutters, and affected parties, and ask questions about the appeal. The public hearing will then be closed, and the board will enter into a deliberative session to discuss the merits of the appeal. Those who do want to make public comment will come forward and sit at this table across the front over here and state your name and address for the record. For each application, the board will decide to approve with conditions, deny, or continue to a later meeting. You're welcome to watch the deliberations this evening, or you can contact Nancy at Town Hall to get the results. For any motion made, there must be an affirmative vote of at least 3 members. An applicant can request a continuance if there's not a full 5-member board to act on an application. If you are aggrieved by a decision made by the ZBA tonight, you have the right to appeal to Superior Court. However, before appealing to the Superior Court, you must request a rehearing with this board to preserve your right to appeal. Rehearing requests must be filed within 30 days of the decision and state all reasons why the decision was unlawful or unreasonable. Failure to request a rehearing may forfeit your ability to appeal to Superior Court. And with that, if we could have the board introduce themselves, and we'll start with Nancy.
Nancy Larson, Zoning Code Enforcement Officer.
Alan Dayton, member.
Leonard Stewart, Vice Chairman.
Gail Lebrecht, Chairman, and I'm also the recording secretary.
Denise Langley, member.
John Wilt, alternate member.
And for tonight, I'm going to appoint John as a voting alternate because our 5th regular member is absent, so we do have the full 5-member board. The first item on the agenda is the minutes to the meeting of February 11th. Do we have corrections or a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve. I didn't see anything that didn't.
Okay,
Second.
We'll have to read it.
there is. I want to thank
Busy
whoever,
meeting.
I want to thank whoever it was that caught the error in the header, though, because I had marked February 13th instead of February 11th. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. Okay, motion carries. Our first application for the evening is TF Moran applicant and Lead Development LLC owner seeking the following variances from the Goffstown zoning ordinance. Variance under section 3.11, table of principal uses, to permit construction of multifamily housing in the commercial district. Variance under section 4.3, table of dimensional regulations, to allow construction of 33 multifamily residential dwelling units, whereas 31 units are permitted. And a variance under section 4.3, table of dimensional regulations, and section 15.3.5, construction on a lot without street frontage, to allow construction on a lot whose only road frontage is a private way, whose sole access to the private way is via a private access easement over an abutting parcel. The property is located off Mast Road behind 585 Mast Road, Franklin Savings Bank, and is generally referred to as Land Unit 2, Map 18, Lot 60-2, on an approved and recorded consolidation and condominium site plan for Abington Place, zoned commercial, and it was continued from the February 11th meeting. Okay, do we have representatives to speak on this tonight? And if you would please introduce yourselves and give me a minute to write each of your names down.
I'm Robert Cruz,
Mm-hmm.
lead development, and I've been with the property for about 14 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I guess you know Robert Turney.
I'm Robert Turney with NeighborWorks Southern New Hampshire, a butter and potential
Tourgny.
Tourigny. Very close.
Tourigny.
Correct.
Okay. And Jason,
Yeah, I'm Jason Hill, civil engineer with TF Moran, Bedford office.
okay.
And we also have Sue Manchester from Chanfinny, Bass and Green. And we have Jennifer Vadney, also with NeighborWorks.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I'm gonna take this off, it's getting a little hot.
Get yourselves comfortable and we'll get to talking.
Well, again, I've been with the property since 2006.
Mhm.
We've worked heroically trying to get retail on the site. We did have an auto zone at one time. They even drew the building permit, and then their head of real estate came by to give it the final blessing, and instead he blew it up, in part because of the location, and in part because they would have been part owner of the private park. When we did the park, we really felt good about it. Matter of fact, my wife and I, maintained the park for 10 years. But as time went on, the insurance companies no longer wanted to insure a private park, especially one that had close access to the road. And the next ones in line, the Goodyear Tire, had a very large facility with about 10 or 12 bays that they wanted to put there. And again, the head of real estate blew it up at the last minute, in part because of the visibility and in part because of the park. We had even a third one who did the same thing. It was at that point, and I could no longer get insurance for the park. We did find the occasional needle or problems there. And I just told the planning board, I'm going to have to fence it off, guys. You know, I mean, I can't insure it. I can't have a park where I have infinite liability. And then working with Franklin Savings Bank, everybody on the board finally agreed the right thing to do is the day of the private park is gone. We went and put in Franklin Savings Bank that I think has been a very good addition to the property. So we're still back to you want to point that out, the piece that we're looking at, where it has the setback issues from the road, and retail or higher end retail, meaning people that will pay a decent rent, simply won't go there. I mean, decent rent means if you're going to build a new strip mall, it's at about $200 a square foot now, and you have to then wind up getting rents in the $20 to $25 square foot range, whereas people are more looking in a site like that for the lower end rent, like those in Shaw's Mall or Goffstown Square, where the rents are more in the $10 range, but they already have a building. So you can't really put up a building to today's standards with today's construction costs and then have only the lower rent people want to go there. So I've been at it for 12 years now. I've been to ICSC in Las Vegas many times. I've been to the Boston one. I am a commercial broker in addition to being an engineer. And I've gotten a lot of good people to go to a lot of good sites, but I keep coming up empty here. We also then went and got the letter from the Norwood Group. We asked them to take a look at it from the retail point of view, And they kind of concurred that it's not a retail site that's going to pull in the rents you need to build the thing. And even though I don't have a letter, a good friend of mine, Tom Feeney, who is a commercial realtor, he did the work over where the CMC Urgent Care went. And initially, when that was bought by Riley Enterprises, their intent was to go all retail and stuff like that. And they spent about a year just going everywhere, trying to get people to go on that site, which is a better site than this one because it's right out front by a light. So every time a retailer would turn the site down, Tom Feeney would say, "Oh, why don't you take a look over there? Take a look at that site." Well, if they didn't like that site, why are they gonna like mine? So it's a recent conversation, so I didn't get a letter from Tom on that. But I think I'm really down to, I've carried this so long, trying to get retail. We have well over 100,000 into the carry, probably approaching 150 on taxes, taking care of the park, trying to get something to happen. And I'm at a complete dead end. In one part now too is just how high construction costs are. It's almost impossible to be able to build something there and get a tenant who could pay the rent to keep your head above water, or one where even a bank would consider funding it. So we have our neighbors, namely NeighborWorks, Franklin Savings, Rite Aid, all of whom are kind of sick of this big vacant lot, and they support the idea of the townhouses. From my point of view, this would finish up an epic project. I think it would look good. Frankly, I'd be happier about it than I would when I was going to stick AutoZone there, or the Goodyear tire and rubber thing. To some extent, in retrospect, I'm kind of glad they fell through, because I think the right way to finish this is to have a little villagey thing. You wind up having affordable housing. That is one of the top priorities in the state right now. And we're fortunate enough to have one of the top agencies on affordable housing working with us. You know, most of the other affordable things that come in, they're like 20% set aside, and the rest are market rate. That's in almost all towns. Bedford, you know, sometimes they go up to 25%, you know. But working with NeighborWorks, they're 100%, correct me if I'm wrong, of the units have to meet the standards of workforce housing. And I think you've seen just how good it is, the one that's there. We also did one with them in Amherst. That's just an amazing success. It was done in historic district. The town is happy. Everybody's happy with it. So from my point of view, I kind of see this thing finishing up as the village thing. Short of that, I really don't have any good uses. I mean, can I let somebody use it for storage? You know, park your boat or park your RVs there or some such thing, flatten it, gravel it, because I can't get the other uses that require construction.
As an abutter, we'd probably oppose that.
I think you would probably oppose it, that's true. That's true, I think my neighbors would oppose it. On the other hand, at some point, when you're up painted into the corner, you're into the corner, you know, but yes, I'd like to do this. That's what we would like to do. And, but by the same token, I don't want to go broke over this thing. 14 years is a long time carrying this baby. Mowing the lawns, picking up bottles and trash and stuff on weekends. You know, at first it felt a little cool, you know. You know, you feel gets old. By the second year, third year, saying, oh my God, we gotta go down the park, we gotta clean up the park again, you know. So it got old after a while. So, now my last little issue on the whole thing is that whole Bergeron property doesn't help anything there. I mentioned it before. I have a couple of recent pictures.
That's this building,
Yeah,
small,
yeah. It's,
to the west, to the east. and
I
south.
met with them and, you know, said, try to see if there wasn't some use. But the amount of money that he wants for it, it's about double what you could possibly pay to do anything with it. So the strategy is to let it deteriorate as much as possible, and at some point, somebody, just for the aesthetics, is gonna pay him his money. Well,
Is that your assumption, or did they tell you that?
that's what he told me. I would not say it unless it was told to me. I'm not assuming this. He said, then I'll have to let it go. I'll pass these two around. They're a couple of the latest. On the side facing the bank, all the siding is gone. I mean, it's atrocious. And it's gonna go in one direction, down, unless he changes his mind. It will not be fixed, boards will come off, stuff will happen until somebody, whoever that somebody might be, feels so aesthetically abused that they will jump in and pay that kind of money. And the property's difficult because its border is right on the Franklin Savings Bank line. You can't paint that house or do a clapboard on what would be the west side of his building without doing it from the Franklin Savings property. It's literally right on the property line. So it's a difficult, and that certainly doesn't help to be able to deal with the property. I know that there's probably nothing that can be done, but I mention it, and I have put time in with the guy trying to work something out, but not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. So, any questions? about the-
You know, in January, Jason went through all the criteria for the hardships, or for the variance criteria for for each of the variances. And he gave us a lot of the details. Is there anything else that you want to add to that, or does the board have any questions as a follow-up to what was said 2 months ago?
Well, one of the variances is for this road frontage thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, the road to the right of the Bergeron property, is that a road or is that a right
Mystic.
of way?
Same thing, Mystic Way.
It's this road here.
Yeah.
Is
It's a
that a town
one-way.
road?
It's a
No,
one-way, enter only.
It's not a town road,
no, it's one way in.
okay.
And in other words, if you were living in the townhouses and you're coming home from Manchester, you pull in here,
Right,
go down. When you're leaving, you have to come out here
okay.
through the light. This is one way from here to here. And again, that's the little Bergeron piece there. Just nudges me, even look at it. But the road, they were built to town standards, but they're privately done. We plow them,
Oh, okay.
maintain them, and we have a little condo association comprised of NeighborWorks, Franklin Savings, and me, and we would be responsible there. I mean, if we keep it insured, for example.
The condo association includes who?
NeighborWorks, Franklin Savings, and Lead Development.
The owner of the middle parcel.
Yeah. So the three participants in maintaining only this stretch of road are the NeighborWorks, Franklin Savings, and me. And our responsibility is for that piece of road. Where it goes over Rite Aid, just for example, if you were coming home from Manchester and there was a line, or you could go into here to go to Rite Aid and then go out. It's a cross easement. And if something should ever happen here, we all have a right to cure. There, in other words, if they just let a hole develop here, and we could say, guys, fix it up. If you don't, we will, and put a lien on your property. But for 10 years, we've had no problem.
I can just clarify, Susan Manchester,
Yeah.
Sheehan Finney. The back part of NeighborWorks, the part that's already there, is not part of a condominium association.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
it is not. What there are covenants and easements, and that's how they pay their share.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
That
Yeah, fee
road,
simple, yeah.
their back road is theirs. It only applies to that one stretch of road. And they participate even though they aren't frontage on that road. That's correct, sorry.
Alan, questions, comments?
No.
Denise, John?
No, I still have the question is still, who owns that road that's one way?
Oh, the road that's,
We actually own the road.
That's
With the
right.
townhouse project in the back,
So for-
we own the road all the
Project in
way.
the back owns the road.
Right.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
but, I don't know if you owned it, or?
No,
Bergeron?
we own that road from the entrance of Mass Road back to the townhouses. We maintain that road.
but we would have a right to pass
Correct.
over that road, as does a Franklin Savings person, as does a Rite Aid person. Could come in Mystic Way, turn left on Abington, and go to the Rite Aid.
So is Rite Aid part of the lead Franklin Savings?
No.
No.
They're separate? Okay. I thought so, I just,
Luckily,
Yes,
Yeah,
but-
it's a complicated project.
luckily,
It
they're
is.
a major bureaucracy.
Yes, Nancy?
Madam Chair, the last time that Jason Hill presented was in January, and at that point in time, we did not yet have the legal determination from the town's council. We have since received it, and TF Moran submitted the variance criteria in the zoning board application to address the frontage requirement in the zoning ordinance as opposed to the RSA requirement.
Okay.
And, which is filling out a different section of the zoning board application, so the board might want to just have them present the answers to that variance request,
Okay,
since
that's
it
fine.
wasn't presented in this format the last time.
And don't let me forget either, we want to just quickly go over the planning board comments as well. You want to,
Yeah, if
Go
you'd
over
like,
the-
I can
yeah,
touch on the,
update for sure.
summarize the address of the 5 comments. This is related to the frontage variance. When Abington was established, when Abington Way was established originally, it was determined to be a private way. So due to the nature of the development, the overall development programming. So as such, although it was designed to the town standards, it was not tested because it was going to be considered a private way, and therefore the town was not having to accept the road. So for that reason, the testing didn't occur. We never asked the town to take the road over. However, it has been designed to be consistent with the specifications of your roads. It's also lasted over a decade. It's in good shape. That's a testament to that fact as well. So that's just a history of how it came to be and how it came to be developed. So regarding the development of the land unit and the frontage that we're proposing to be for our second land unit for this unit 2 of this condominium, when we went before the planning board back in 2017, it was always planned during that process that this land unit was gonna be used for a future development of whatever nature, came about as a result of the market and such. So, as such, the planning board, in its granting of that condominium subdivision, almost asserted the fact that the frontage existed, because they couldn't approve a plan that didn't conform to the zoning ordinance. So there's those two things in the background that I wanted to mention. Now, regarding the specific 5 criteria, the first being the public interest, that's really reflective of anything that affects the rights or the interests of the general public, health, finances, and the like. This project, development of this parcel with a use that's already established in the vicinity, will not affect the character of the neighborhood. Therefore, it should not be in the contrary of the public interest. Some of the similar arguments I made regarding vacant land that's that's been undeveloped for idle land, and the value of the D-value of that attest to this as well. I'd like to incorporate those arguments about idleness of land and that not being in the public interest and bring those into this same argument. So this project, as Robert mentioned, also for the road itself, the frontage that we're talking about, they're taking care of this association agreement, maintains this road, has maintained this road. There's no material cost the town is incurring as a result of this, since it's privately held and maintained. And as well as the right to cure, I think, is important as well, because that means that if there was a failure to maintain this access easement at the signal, that it could be maintained as an open area for access and frontage, so there'd be no issues with access or frontage being provided through that provision. So some of those are reasons we're consistent with the public interest, which is the first criteria. The second is it's the spirit of the ordinance, and it has a very similar intent clause as to the first condition. Again, I'd like to state that the road has been built to public standards. It's fully accessible year-round to fire, emergency services, police, and to the public as well. And the uses that we're proposing for the affordable housing are consistent with the surrounding community, the village concept. We're taking an existing use and expanding it, an existing abutting use, expanding that use, not introducing any obnoxious or new use. Those reasons will also, finally, we're not going to have a significant impact on the traffic or pedestrian safety of the vicinity. Originally, with the original project, we had a higher traffic generation because of the retail nature of that use. We'll have a lower net traffic effect through the residential use as compared to that retail use. So I don't see any issues or hazards that this would create to to vehicular or pedestrian safety. There is a nice sidewalk system that that exists, and that we'll also implement with the planning board to provide interconnectivity between these parcels. The third criteria is substantial justice clause. That means that the harm to the applicant, if this was denied, is greater than the harm to the public if this was approved. And I'd like to contend that we have an existing use on an abutting parcel. We're not altering the essential character of the neighborhood. There's no, by granting of this variance, supported by the statements made by Robert earlier today, would far outweigh the harm if the frontage variance was denied, because any development of this parcel, this frontage variance doesn't relate to the use. It's basically saying you couldn't develop the parcel because it did not have frontage. So that would basically mean he'd have to dissolve the condo to make this a developable parcel, which is not technically feasible, and it's very harmful. I think it would cause a greater hardship than the approval of this variance certainly would to the public, harm the public. Finally, the final two criteria is for surrounding property diminution. I'd throw in the clause of the idleness of this property over a decade, although the repeated attempts to develop it. Those conditions that have led to that not being successful have been already expressed. Idle properties are deemed to not be in the best interest of the public. Development of this property with a use that's already consistent with the neighborhood would only increase property values by fulfilling, removal of this idle piece and making this a whole completed, finished village development type project. So if I have to, therefore, this will definitely benefit the applicant, owner, and the abutters and the general public by being able to complete this development. Finally, the hardship clause, the fifth clause, the special conditions of the property, really that distinguish this from other projects. I'm just gonna state that, this Abingdon Way, which provides access to these two land units, one being the Franklin Savings Bank, the second being the subject parcel, was designed to town standards and meets the safety requirements for public roads. Because it was classified as a private road, the town didn't require any inspections during construction. Because the Abingdon Way does not directly connect to Mass Road, it's not considered direct legal frontage per the town zoning designation, although we have the easement in place, which will allow for us to maintain that access and frontage in perpetuity. In 2018, the planning board voted to approve the lot consolidation in the land condo. As I stated, that action would have basically asserted that the land unit 62, the 60-2 was conforming to the zoning ordinance and was going to be used for building development purposes, i.e. it had legal frontage. So the denial of the variance would obviously harm Lead because it would be a non-buildable lot. The dissolution of the condominium would be the only way out. It's not feasible, and it's definitely a hardship to the applicant. And the use is reasonable because the development is a suitable in an existing neighborhood style that's already there on the site. It wants to expand. It's a good cause and it's needed in the community. So this is a reasonable use. So those are the 5 criteria as it relates to the frontage.
Okay.
So how does the savings bank, how do people get in that parking lot?
At the lighted intersection?
There's a driveway, they have to, main entryway is this full access drive for Rite Aid. Their main driveway is immediately to the right as you.
Exactly, I kind of knew the answer to that question, but I just wanted to,
So they cross through that same.
so they do the same thing you wanted to.
Correct.
Alan?
I served on the planning board when this project was approved. And it was approved with a condition that they could market these sites either commercially without having frontage on the street. So why we're hearing it again is beyond my imagination.
Especially since we had an auto zone fully approved, fully. They'd even drawn the building permit and
So I
paid
have
the
no
town.
problem with what they're asking for.
Yeah, me either.
Me neither.
The planning board did say in their comments regarding the frontage, they said that they had approved the condominium with the intent that it had access. So, in my mind, this is just a formality because that really makes sense. Otherwise, you have an unbuildable lot or an unusable lot. So,
I think if we make a motion, for, it won't have to come back at any time, ever, correct, for this, for the, because we're making the
Like you, but
motion.
with
But I've
the,
been coming for 16 years.
But this, I understand why we have to do it, and that's fine, but we wanna just make sure that this is part of the condominium, if that's the way we choose to go.
okay. Anybody else have questions? Do you guys have any further comments?
I really think this will finish this up and look great. I really meant it when I said in retrospect, I'm glad we didn't get the AutoZone. I'm glad it blew up. I mean, now you have all those people in the townhouses, you know, you would have had the AutoZone, and once you have that, you might have had another, like a car wash or something in that time frame. It's later on now that things have changed because of Amazon and just the way the whole market's going, you know. So I feel very positive about this, and I'm glad I'm not here asking for a Goodyear Tire Center instead of.
Does anybody on the board have further, Len?
Yeah, a question for the applicant. I believe this was discussed back at the meeting in January, that there was opposition to the residential project from the school district, which was based on a presentation of an earlier plan with a higher number of units. Was the revised information forwarded to the school district, and has there been any feedback from them? I don't recall seeing any in our packet tonight.
None that I know of. Initially,
Additional information was provided, but no feedback.
no feedback, no.
Thank
We
you.
had looked to do initially a 48-unit apartment because I'd been told construction-wise, you know, that's would work. As we looked at it, we agreed with the board, it was too big, and we withdrew it on our own. And we were fortunate that NeighborWorks likes to do townhouses. Right now, most of the people doing affordable are doing the garden styles, you know, and stacking them up to get the price down, to make 20% affordable. Whereas here we have the NeighborWorks doing townhouses, which are really nice.
We did provide them with an updated plan consistent with this,
Provided the school board?
correct, as well as that letter from NeighborWorks that's being circulated.
The plan is on there.
Okay, yeah.
And NeighborWorks does pay impact fees.
I'd also like to state, now that I'm just thinking of it, regarding the density, we did revise our density request to 32 units from 33, which was initial. I know the notice has it both identified as 33 in some areas and 32 in others. But it's mentioned that the updated plan.
We didn't want to change the notice since
Yep.
that's the original
Is it
application, but it's
32
revised.
residential units, or is, because I heard somewhere along the line that one of them is going to be a community room. So is it 32 units, residential units plus a community room?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so it's still 33 units because that one might eventually get converted at some point.
No, I think-
Marianne says that.
No, I
We'll
think
take
we-
care of that.
It's
I
Yeah.
think for zoning
reflected in the
purposes,
staff report.
I
would
think
be
for
32
zoning
residential
purposes, it
units.
would be the 32 units, because
Yep.
they don't have a density for other type of uses. you know,
Correct.
for-
It's, based on dwelling units.
An accessory space.
Okay.
Do we want to take these one at a time and
Yes.
and
Yes.
finish them off?
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
We'll definitely take them one at a time.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Same time.
You're talking about the variances, right? Yeah, they're gonna be, we will discuss them and vote on them one at a time after
Right.
public.
But do you want to have hearings on all three of them beforehand? Or do you want to take and close this first one and
We can-
vote on it?
Most of, they were discussed in January. All the variants,
Except for
Well, I know
the,
they were.
except for the frontage.
except for the frontage. The frontage
The other
is what
two
we
were-
needed to come back for, as well as the comment from the planning board.
Well,
I think we carry
we
on.
never voted on the density.
No, we didn't vote on anything because we had to wait for comment from the
Okay.
planning board.
I think we need to go with the private road, because if we,
Hmm.
they're not going anywhere if we don't grant that variance. We start with
Well,
that.
we're not gonna start deliberating them yet, though.
No, okay.
Because we still have to have the public comment.
Right.
Then we can, do you mean, do you want them to address the variance criteria for each one individually?
I want hear from the public, and I want to vote on variance number 1 before we do number 2 or 3.
I get, so you, okay, I get it. We
So
can
if he
do that.
doesn't get 1, there's no reason to hear anything else.
Right, okay, so I get what you mean. So variance 1 on the road frontage, open it to the public. Variance 2, we discuss it, open it to the public.
Yep.
Or open it to the public, then
Yes.
discuss it.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Okay, we can do that. Okay, does anybody else have comments before we open to the public?
I guess if I could just add further, as the abutter and the owner of the property in the back, we have frontage on Mast Road for our development. If we bought the middle parcel and we were able to combine them, we'd have frontage for the middle parcel as well. Our financing mechanism prohibits us from merging those two entities, those two units into one.
Okay.
And so we're,
I remember you saying that in January.
legally, we're a general partner in both entities, and so we have that common interest,
Right.
but we just physically can't merge the lots to give ourselves the frontage. I know it just doesn't make sense that we can't do that, but that's really the nature of the beast. And so,
Okay.
even though we have frontage in the back, we can't share that frontage with the middle parcel if we end up buying it, so,
Okay,
okay.
thank you. If you guys wouldn't mind stepping back just for a second.
Yep.
And I'm going to see if there is anybody in the audience who would like to make comment on this application. I think most everybody's with you, but not quite. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and the board is going to address the road frontage variance request.
Have you done a regional impact on any of this?
Did that already in January.
Thank
that
you.
in January.
Okay.
Okay, road frontage. Well, as I said, the planning board did plan when they approved the request before them, that they approved the condominium with between the bank and that particular parcel with the intent that they would have access. There was no intent on the planning board to make this a locked parcel. And I agree that it shouldn't have been anyway. Personally, I think that this variance should be granted.
Is there any chance it was already granted in the original deal?
No, I think.
Probably not, that's what we're talking
I think
about.
we've just got to go through this formality kind of thing. In my
Okay,
mind,
fine.
it's more of a formality than
I'm
anything.
not sure how I'd phrase it, but I'll vote for it.
And likewise, this is really a foundational question. Without this, nothing else makes sense, and I also would certainly support its passage.
Alan?
Okay, with it, I'll make a motion to approve the variance request for construction on a lot without street frontage per section 15.3.5, as presented.
Second.
Okay, so we have Alan made the motion, Denise seconded, all in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, the next one is
Use.
use, the multifamily housing in a commercial district. On that one, the planning board's comments were that they, let's see, well, that was for 32 units. For that one, the multifamily housing in a commercial district, the planning board commented that, given that the zoning of this parcel is commercial, the planning board did not agree that a residential project is an appropriate request.
And we're opening this back up, correct?
Yes, we will open this portion
Making
back up
sure,
to the
yeah.
public for comment again.
I have a problem in the density calculation. I'd like to hear from the applicant as to how they arrived at 32 units or 31 units when there's slightly over 2 acres on the site per the site plan.
We're not there yet, because the first one we're doing is multifamily in a commercial district, before we get to the number of units. Are we gonna allow multifamily versus multifamily in a commercial district first? Versus the number of units? That would be in the, write-up, in the description of the application. It's the first one, under section 3.11, table of principal uses.
Correct. But do we want to hear from anybody in the public?
Oh, we will. We will. You just brought up this question,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
and I thought you were on the other variance
Right,
request.
we're on
I was.
the- okay.
Oh.
They're listed in that order, by the way.
I changed the order in my staff report recommending that they
Shame on you.
put it in an order that makes sense.
Right.
Seeing who's paying attention. Okay. Okay, so on the variance of the multifamily house, the variance request of multifamily housing in a commercial district, I'm going to open this application to the public for comment, if there's anybody that has anything that they would like to say. Come on down. And you are?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am Clara Monier. I live on New Boston Road in Goffstown, probably for the last 65 years. I'm retired as the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. And over the years, we have funded, while I was Executive Director, over 400 multifamily housing projects all across the state. And I really view multifamily housing as a commercial enterprise. I don't see them segregated into you're either commercial or you're multifamily. To me, they should all be integrated. And I think if you look what's happening in Bernardville now, this project would fit in, whether you call it a commercial project where someone is making money, or whether it's a multifamily housing project. It fits into what Bernardville is and what it should be, and it should enhance that particular neighborhood. And I've seen it in a lot of other projects as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Is there anybody else? Okay, the public comment on this particular variance is closed. And board discussion?
All right, I'm gonna stick my neck out because I think I've said this on other similar projects. I think what we're weighing here is the wisdom of our 10-year-old master, actually more than 10-year-old master plan, I believe, as to where we want commercial development versus what the wisdom of the market is telling us. And the fact that we have, and this is not the only one, but some other large tracts of land that are, I believe, zone CIFZ in town that have been sitting idle for a decade or more. Now, I wonder about the fairness of asking owners to continue to say, yeah, we'd like to see commercial there, but realistically, some of the things that have been cited, what Amazon, what the changes in retailing have brought about in the market are something that's not going to change anytime soon. And I believe it was in the letter that was provided tonight, the mention is made that retail in this part of New Hampshire tends to gravitate, among other things, toward River Road in Bedford. We do not have that many parcels that, just from a simple logical point, are going to be appealing to large retail. This parcel among them for the frontage issues, or I'm sorry, let me be more specific, for the visibility from the road issues and the fact that you are set back well out of the line of sight of vehicles traveling on Mast Road. I think, we have to look at this, we have to balance the benefits to the town versus, we can stick to the master plan forever, but what's that going to bring in terms of residents, in terms to benefits to the public, in terms of tax revenue? I for one, think it's a pretty good plan. I think it does fit the site, and, I certainly would be in support of it.
I agree, if they've been trying to market this for 10 years and can't rent it, can't sell it.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe it was a bad decision to make it commercial.
we can wish for commercial there all we want, but if it's not gonna happen in this market, I think it's better to have a productive use of the land than to have it sit there.
So I'm going to take another view, different view. I think that the master plan was set out to allow commercial development in this town, and commercial is not just retail, could be offices. We have very limited commercial property in this town. We have limited land that's, has public utilities that this land has. I am not against workforce housing. I think it is viable for this town, but not on a commercial property. This already has quite a bit of, it's mixed use. This is exactly what the master plan wanted, and I think adding more multi-housing in that is destroying our limited commercial property.
And I'm gonna chime in here. You've made some valid points in your argument, but I think I agree more with Denise in the fact that our commercial land is somewhat precious, and very, very limited. You made the comment about large retail, and there's no requirement that it be a large retail. It can be something small, like Denise said, it could be some offices, it could be, you know, the quintessential little village type shops that we have. You know, we are never gonna compete with Bedford or Hooksett or any of the other towns that are built out, commercially. And we're always gonna remain a bedroom community, but we still need to, let the limited commercial property that we have be used for commercial development. And that said, going by this plan alone, I'm not convinced that this plan itself is not going to, it's going to affect the character of the neighborhood, because when you look, it's going to be, the units that are going to be built are going to be very similar to what's already down the hill. And what's already built is down the hill. There's the flat portion, then it goes down. And it's not very visible from the road, but these units are going to be up on the flat portion, right behind the bank, right next to Rite Aid, and there's going to be 2 stories plus the peak, and it's going to rise high above the bank. And I think it is going to really change the character of that area of town, having it look like that versus having a commercial entity in there.
I think what I heard was that these small little village shops, I've been in some of them, they don't seem to sell a lot of stuff, could never afford the rent they're gonna need to pay to build that building for them.
And that,
And adjacent is, half the stores are empty over where the AutoZone is. Hubert's moved out, I mean, I don't even know what's over there, but, I mean, I do know what's over there, but a lot of those buildings are empty, so there is a space available for people to go, and they're not going. That's what I see.
and I think that goes hand in hand with what was presented here in terms of the perpetually rising construction costs. How are you going to reach an equation where you can get someone in there who can pay the rent that can justify the cost of building new buildings there? It doesn't seem, I just can't see a viable solution to that.
Alan?
I work on too many projects that have commercial on the first floor with living units up above. So,
But this one doesn't have that.
so it's not there was a grand plan for Bernardville that never went anywhere because the residents couldn't get behind it.
Mhm.
Although the town was behind it. And there was a mixed-use plan. And it was specifically was about commercial on the first floor, or enterprise of business enterprises on the low first floor, and residential on the upper floors.
Yeah, there was a certain requirement, percentage that needed to be residential or like a maximum residential allowance, and then the rest had to be commercial
But if,
or industrial.
but if you think about what's happening here versus what's proposed here versus what you ever see, like if you, I've spent some time in Florida, okay? And the commercial enterprises down there are much bigger.
Mhm.
And so their mixed-use developments are 50 acres. Okay? So they do build them, and you drive all around on the inside of it, in the parking lots and whatever, to find what you're looking for, whether it be a breakfast place, or whether it be a clothing store, or a bar, or a hotel. But I don't see that happening here in Goffstown, ever. I mean, so it's a tough niche to fill. I don't disagree with how difficult it is to find commercial tenants or business tenants. But the avenue for this, I think, is to, change the master plan or the zoning and
Master
approved by
plan
the
is being-
voters.
The master plan is being rewritten, redesigned.
There'll be another 5 years before they get to it.
No, this summer.
I've heard that story before. My signature's on the last one.
Madam Chair, I have a
Go ahead.
comment. I struggle with, to me, they gained a lot eliminating that park.
Mhm.
They utilized that, they blocked the site, which would have been a clear site to this development, which would have attracted more likely a higher payer. I'm gonna just be adamant that we're limited on commercial space. I understand construction's expensive, but it comes in waves. And when people wanna move to Goffstown and they want to supply a great commercial base of income, we're not gonna have any land left. We have to think of the future, and this has been zoned this way for a reason.
My other comment to that is that since the beginning, when they came to the planning board with these different things, it was always intended to be commercial. And they said, they ended up doing these other things first because there was always a reason they had to do this and they had to do that, and then a reason to give up the bank. And now there's very little commercial, and it's going to be more residential instead of the intended commercial that was, I don't want to say promised, but that's what was presented.
Mm-hmm.
Can I talk?
Anybody else? Are we ready to take a vote? Is there more conversation?
I still think that there's an avenue for change. And it's not here.
Where is it then?
With the voters of this town.
For what, a zoning change?
That they have an avenue.
Isn't that why they elect this board?
Huh?
Isn't that why they elect this board? The voters?
What, to make a zoning change?
Well, no, just
No.
to make those decisions.
When, the decisions that we make are ones that stray from the zoning ordinances as they are. When they can't-
Criteria.
When they don't, they have to meet the criteria for either the variance or the special exception. To make an actual zoning change, that has to go on an article on the ballot come March, which would be March of 2021, because our next election is in a couple of weeks, not even.
7 days.
That's right, 7 days.
Or make an adjustment on the master plan that's being worked on.
That's correct. So, it's I don't know what you're doing with the master plan, because I haven't attended any of the meetings.
Yeah, I don't think that there have been a lot of meetings other than with like Joanne and, I think Barbara's been involved and maybe a few others, but it's not been,
No public hearings or anything yet.
no, not at this point.
Let me offer a motion. Let's bring the thing to a head and put a vote on it. I will move that the variance to permit multifamily housing in the commercial district be granted as presented.
Do we have a second? Okay. Motion is to permit the
It's a multivariance.
multifamily housing in a commercial district. We have the motion from Len and the second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
And against? Okay, do we have an alternate motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to deny the request under section 3.11 for principal uses to permit construction of a multifamily housing in the commercial district.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have the motion from Alan, the second by Denise to deny the request for multifamily housing in the commercial zone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And against? Okay, that motion carries. And I'm guessing we don't need to go on to the number of units?
Make any comment?
The public hearing is closed. Sorry. You can appeal the decision. You can, I guess that would be the next step if that's what you wanted to do.
There's huge amounts of vacant commercial. So how do you, huge amount.
Yeah, that's it. No.
Okay, our next application is New England Property Maintenance applicant and Amy R. Kozlowski, owner, seeking a variance to perform site work, removal and replacement of retaining walls, regrading and removal of one tree within the inner 50 feet of the 100-foot wetland and surface water conservation district buffer. This concerns section 13.3.5, uses not permitted in the wetland surface water conservation district of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at 84 Lynchville Park Road, map 24, lot 57, zoned residential 2. Good evening.
Good evening.
And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Daniel LeBlanc, I am a partner at New England Property Maintenance.
I'm sorry.
Hunter Philbrick, tree foreman and marketing representative.
What's your-
at-
Hunter?
Philbrick, tree foreman and marketing representative of New England Property Maintenance.
Philbrick, Phil,
Yes, ma'am.
and
Amy
Amy.
Kozlowski, 84 Lynchville Park Road, resident.
Okay. All right. Shoot, tell us your story.
All right, she has walls that are failing. I met with the Conservation Committee last week. The problem with these, if these fail, these bankings have a potential to go into the river. They're failing because they never had proper drainage put behind them, and because they're wood to begin with, and they've been there a long time. What I want to do, and she has this one tree that's like right in the center where her walkout sliders are for her cellar. And the root ball from the tree is actually like 1.5 feet above her door. And what's going on is water goes back there. Now, to put drainage in there, it would kill the tree because we'd have to go through the roots, you know what I mean? So what we wanna do is remove that tree. I wanna take out both of these walls and put one wall instead of two, using 2,000-pound concrete blocks.
2,000 pounds?
Yeah, well, they vary between.
Is it one block, 2,000 pounds?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
they're heavy. But
Wow.
they're made for this kind of thing, because there's a lot of weight there, where this is. And I'm sure the ground is saturated because it's never had proper drainage from behind the wall to release. So what we do is we put a stone drain behind them, and we use a silt fabric to keep dirt from getting into the stone, so that by the time the water gets through, it's only water that's releasing, going, you know. So it's basically just regular ground drainage water. If we don't change these walls and they let go, it could definitely be detrimental to the river. If we do change it, it's gonna look a lot better, number one, because they're pretty bad looking. It's gonna be a lot safer for residents. It's gonna make it look better for the neighbors. And basically, we're just replacing what's already existing and making it better for the protection of the river itself and for the protection of the homeowner. Taking out that tree will eliminate that water problem. She's willing to put trees back, you know, in spots if necessary.
Well, I did the minutes to the Conservation Commission, so I
Yeah, I
remember what you said. But if she puts in more trees, I know the comment that David had said was that over time, won't those roots cause problems like this big tree did?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we want to offer that.
Zoning board
option.
doesn't get into the trees so much?
Okay.
That's Conservation Commission Department, maybe planning, but you don't have to go to them, I don't think, right?
No,
Yeah.
conservation we met with last
Yeah.
week, and,
Yeah.
yeah, they went well.
Yeah.
But, I mean, basically, it's an improvement all the way around. It makes the property better, it's gonna make it look nicer aesthetically from the river, and it's gonna make it safer for the homeowner and protect the river. So, I mean, there's not a lot of bad that could, you know, and we plan on, like, we're gonna use silt fence and hay bales, everything we need to protect the river while we're doing the construction, you know, so that's basically where we're at. These walls they're definitely gonna fail at some point. It could be next month or next year.
I remember one of their comments was that if the Conservation Commission, they felt that if they didn't approve this, it was gonna be more damage that would be coming forward.
Right.
So to do the work, do it properly, get it taken care of before it affects the river.
Right, exactly, yeah.
What kind of permits you have to get for the walls that are already constructed?
Well, those were already existing walls that were concrete walls, and then one of them collapsed. And I went to the town because I did a big wall down on I forget the name of it, it's off the road that goes from Mass to Penodville. And I had to get a permit through, what is it, the highway department? That's
DPW?
down off, yeah, those guys, because so I went to them, because I had already got a permit for a retaining wall, blah, 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 and they had told me, no, well, you don't need a permit, we only do that if it's on, you know, the town's right away, or whatever, you know, they get so much property you guys get from, even though they own it, from the road. So, we assumed we were okay, but it was an emergency situation because it was gonna go through her, you know, sliding glass doors. So we went in and did it, and then I found out that there was all these rules.
A lot of rules when you're down by the river.
Yeah, so that's when I came and met with Nancy about these walls, because I wanted to make sure that, you know, we did that as an emergency thing. It's something that had to be done, and we only replaced concrete with concrete, so it didn't really change anything. But then I found out about all this, I'm very new to this, so. So yeah, I mean, if we have to pay for a permit, a belated or whatever permit for this stuff, that's okay, we don't have an issue with that. The homeowner doesn't have an issue with that.
He doesn't have permits through the town to deal with, does he, Nancy?
No, and the DES, the Wetlands Bureau and the Shoreland Program were deciding amongst themselves who had jurisdiction, and in the end, it was decided that the Wetlands Bureau has jurisdiction, so they'll need to pull permits with the Wetlands Bureau.
Have you contacted them?
No, because I didn't know which one to go with.
Okay,
I've been
now
in
you
touch with Mr. Luddy, and I believe at the Conservation Committee the other night at that meeting, they said it had to be shoreline. So.
I have correspondence from the DES folks. I don't know if I brought it here or not, but they.
Package.
It was in the package, okay, yeah. So, well, there was an earlier correspondence in the package, and so in the end, I forget who, let's see.
Carl Benedict?
Yeah, he was the one that I've been corresponding with, and, let's see, yeah. It was decided that a wetlands permit is what is needed, and that was from Carl Benedict after they had gone, the two programs had gone back and forth, and then they finally settled that this is gonna
It's
be
gonna be wetland.
jurisdiction of the Wetlands Bureau.
Well, they kind of split it, didn't
And
they?
I spent so much time.
Yeah, it's
filling out
a,
that
yeah, it's
shoreline.
a little,
Wetlands would be west of the wall, and wetlands, I guess, east of the wall.
yeah, it's a little confusing, but we'll just believe them. Wetlands permit is what you need before you
Alright,
do
so-
any more work.
So, all right, so get the wetland permit. I don't need the shoreline.
No, and just submit a copy, well, the application will come to the town clerk anyways, so the town will be pulled in the process that way, and so we'll
Right.
just need to make sure that you have that
Yeah,
before
and
you
their
get started.
concern was to have inspections as we go, and that, I would like to have that too, you know?
Yeah, the Conservation Commission said that they had, they recommend the variance be granted conditional upon the project being constructed to the specifications and review by the State Shoreline Protection, but it would be Wetlands Bureau, and that the proper construction process is followed. So that's what they said. Alan, you had comments?
I'm trying to figure out which is the one tree they're trying to cut
Oh,
down.
can I get up and show you?
Is it this one here?
Yeah, it's the one that with the,
Lower, because if you,
no, not the lower one, the top one.
the lower one's gonna die if you raise the wall.
No, we're gonna build a well around it.
Okay.
Yeah, we thought about that too. Because you can't bury it that deep. So what we would do is construct a cement block wall.
Okay, so it's the top one that you're taking
Yeah,
down.
that's the one that's detrimental to her home.
Well, is it the basement that you're talking about?
Yeah, she has a walkout basement.
Yeah, okay.
Finished
And it's a finished basement, so.
The basement's been finished in the house. Doesn't show in the tax card.
I purchased the home October 25th of 2019. I bought the house
It's that
exactly
way.
how it is today.
Okay.
So obviously, this is not an additional expense that I want to incur months after I bought a house.
I get
So
that.
it's been a difficult road for me to go.
Yeah.
But yes, when I purchased the house, to my knowledge, that was how it was listed. I have invited in the town assessor, who sent me a letter months or weeks after I purchased the home saying, we've been trying to get into the house since 2009. He said, I've owned it for about 2 weeks. Come on in.
It's not
So
uncommon.
I'm trying to, be a good resident, a new resident of Goffstown, originally
Okay.
from Londonderry. And, this is the house that I bought, unbeknownst to me. Some things were done without approval. I understand that now, very clearly. So I'm trying to go through the right processes and be a good town resident.
That's good. Well, I hope you enjoy Goffstown as
I-
much
I'm
as
trying
so
to.
many people do.
I'm trying
It
to.
really is a wonderful town. In spite of whatever your difficulties are right now, it is a wonderful town.
It's a great location.
She's got a backyard that you can't do anything with because it's all full of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Got a lot of stuff now.
All right, now I understand what's going on. I'm good.
Do we have any comments or questions or anything?
To me, it looks like a significant improvement.
Right.
Yeah, it looks good.
And it's a needful thing.
I'm taking donations.
You've come to the wrong place.
Go fund me.
Go fund me.
Go fund it on Facebook.
For the record, would you just quickly review the variance criteria for this, or would you like me to read it into the record?
Yeah, I'm not good with big words.
Oh, that's fine.
Ask
okay.
Nancy, it took me
Wrote
forever to
them.
fill this out. Yeah, I get it, but.
All right, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because we'll be replacing the old wooden walls that are failing with a concrete block wall. Spirit of the ordinance is observed because all town and state codes will be met by removing the failing walls and installing one new wall and regrading the backyard. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because if the existing walls fail, they are holding back of substantial banking that would potentially end up in the water. And the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished because the new wall would be a substantial upgrade, both structurally and visually. And as far as hardship, there'll be no adverse impact to town or surrounding properties, but improvement to the existing yard and water problem already exists. The proposed use is reasonable because it will result in a more usable backyard and alleviate the current water issue and other issues and matters deemed relevant. By installing the new wall, any future water problems will be non-existent and the embankment will be a lot more stable. Okay, so that part's done, that's in the record. Okay. Anything else that you want to say?
Nope, there's not much more to say, you know.
Okay.
It's pretty cut and dry.
Okay, well, humor me for a minute, I'm gonna open the hearing to the public, the audience in the back, if anybody has comments, but since there's nobody back there, I guess we have no public comment, and the public hearing is closed, and the board will deliberate.
Pardon me?
You can do it.
Oh. How about any rejoin impact?
Ah, perfect. We need to have that, don't we? Are you finding it has no regional impact?
I don't think so.
Okay, do we have a second?
Is that a motion?
Correct.
Who seconds? When? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, no regional impact. And do we have discussion or a motion on the variance request?
I think this is only doing an improvement, and if the walls fail, it's gonna do more harm.
Yep,
Any issues with this? I'll make a motion.
okay.
A motion that we grant the owner the variance to perform site work, removal and replacement of the retaining walls that are there, regrading and removal of one tree within the inner 50 feet of the 100-foot wetland and surface water conservation district buffer.
Can we add the condition that the Conservation Commission?
What I was gonna put is with the condition they receive proper permits.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
So that way,
that.
if it's right, and follow all regulations.
Well, I think there was a specific in there. What's it? It's the wetlands?
But we're
Yeah.
just concerned if that goes back and forth, we don't want them coming back.
Yeah.
Proper permits.
Yeah, okay,
It covers wetlands,
I'm
it
trying to
covers
make
shoreland,
so
it
you don't
covers
come back
whoever
in
might
case.
up there,
agreed.
okay?
Someone changes their mind.
Well, you never know.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, Alan seconding the motion, all in favor?
I,
Motion carries.
what's that?
You have a
Good luck.
variance.
Welcome to town.
Good luck and welcome
Thank
to
you.
Goffstown.
And, you know, we look for volunteers in this board, just so you know.
I had to take work off tonight to be here.
Oh,
I work at night, unfortunately, or fortunately. So I'm woken up, I'll be waking up by 7 a.m. to his stuff, once we get our
Oh, my goodness.
permit.
It's a good wake-up alarm.
All right.
okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
guys.
Have a good
Bye.
night, good week. Our next application, our next meeting is April
7th.
7th. Is there any other business that we have to address? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, we get to go home.
Thank you.
Good work.